As men age, they face a number of challenges that can quietly erode their health, comfort, and confidence. Challenges that often go unspoken, especially when it comes to intimate matters like self-pleasure. Yet the truth is that many older men continue to engage in masturbation as part of their private routines, but they may not realize that certain habits they developed decades ago could now be working against them, silently creating discomfort, aggravating existing conditions, or even contributing to long-term pelvic and prostate health issues. And while masturbation itself remains a natural, healthy activity at any age, the way it's done and the awareness brought to it matters significantly more after 60 than it did at 30 or 40. Because the body has changed, sensitivities have shifted, blood flow patterns have evolved, and even skin elasticity and nerve function aren't quite the same. Which means that continuing with outdated techniques, rough methods, or frequency patterns that once felt harmless can now slowly undermine well-being, often without any obvious warning signs until real symptoms appear, such as difficulty urinating, erectile discomfort, numbness in the groin area, or pelvic pain that seems to linger. And because older men are rarely encouraged to talk about their intimate habits, these problems get buried under layers of silence and stoicism, but they deserve attention because they are fixable. And the first step is understanding what the most common and damaging mistakes are, the ones urologists are now quietly warning aging men about. Mistakes that don't just affect physical comfort, but also emotional balance, sleep quality, and even hormonal regulation. And one of the most overlooked issues is excessive pressure. Many older men continue to use a firm grip that once felt pleasurable or necessary, not realizing that over time, this can desensitize the nerve endings in the penis, leading to a gradual loss of sensitivity that then encourages even more pressure, creating a vicious cycle of decreasing pleasure and increasing frustration. And this tight grip, often referred to by specialists as death grip, doesn't just reduce sensation, it can also contribute to microtears and thinning skin, delayed ejaculation, and even contribute to Peyronie's disease, where scar tissue forms along the shaft, creating pain and curvature that worsens with time. And the tragedy here is that many men think these symptoms are simply signs of aging or something unchangeable, when in reality they're often self-inflicted through unexamined habit. And another related mistake is ignoring lubrication. Many men over 60 either skip it altogether or use products that aren't suited for their skin type or age-related sensitivity, which can lead to friction-related irritation, tiny abrasions, or long-term dryness that exacerbates skin thinning and even increases infection risk in the urethra or surrounding tissues. And this becomes especially risky for men with diabetes or compromised immunity. Yet the solution is so simple and readily available that it's astonishing more people don't talk about it. Water-based or silicone-based lubricants designed for sensitive skin can completely transform the experience from one of friction and effort to one of ease, comfort, and better outcomes across the board. Not to mention improved recovery time and a noticeable reduction in irritation. And yet another silent mistake many elderly men make is frequency. Mismatch to energy levels. Not because masturbation itself is bad or over-frequent inherently, but because some men feel anxious if they go too long without release and then force the body into a state of stimulation even when it's not naturally ready, which can tax the nervous system, deplete energy stores, and even increase cortisol, the stress hormone, which is already harder to manage after 60. And in cases where a man is dealing with blood pressure issues, prostate enlargement, or fatigue, that unnecessary strain can manifest as dizziness, lightheadedness, or groin soreness, all of which may be misattributed to other causes unless the man is really in tune with how his body responds to arousal and recovery. And then there's the issue of poor posture. This one is rarely talked about, yet incredibly relevant because many men tend to sit in awkward or compressed positions when they masturbate, often hunched over or applying pressure to the tailbone or lower back, which not only restricts circulation to the pelvic area, but also contributes to lumbar strain, sciatica flare-ups, or even hemorrhoid sensitivity. And when this posture is repeated over months or years, it can cause tight hip flexors, weak glutes, and an overall reduction in pelvic stability that affects everything from walking gait to bathroom habits to sexual function. And simply being aware of body alignment, using a pillow for back support, choosing a more ergonomic position, or even performing light stretching before and after can make a profound difference in not just the pleasure, but the long-term mobility of the lower body. And then there's the emotional landscape. Older men sometimes use masturbation not for connection or relaxation, but as a reflexive escape from loneliness, sadness, or boredom, which can create a disconnect between body and mind where the act becomes numbing rather than nourishing. And this doesn't mean that masturbation in difficult emotional states is wrong, but rather that when it becomes a habitual response to stress or isolation, it can backfire and lead to a sense of depletion, disconnection, or even guilt, especially for those who were raised in environments where pleasure was shamed or never talked about. And this emotional residue, if left unaddressed, can slowly erode confidence, reduce motivation, and contribute to cycles of low energy or apathy, all while the man believes he's doing something that should help him feel better. And that's why understanding the context, intention, and emotional setting is so important, because masturbation done with mindfulness, care, and clear intention has entirely different outcomes than masturbation done as a numbing ritual or anxiety response. And finally, one of the most invisible but serious mistakes is ignoring the prostate's feedback. After 60, many men have mild to moderate prostate enlargement, even if it hasn't been diagnosed, and they may not realize that pressure during ejaculation or prolonged arousal can actually irritate the prostate, especially if they're not hydrating well or sitting for long periods afterward. And this irritation can lead to chronic pelvic pain syndrome, difficulty urinating, a sense of incomplete bladder emptying, or even nocturia, where the man has to wake up multiple times a night to pee, disrupting sleep and worsening overall health. Yet these symptoms are often blamed on aging or assumed to be permanent, when in fact reducing inflammation through gentler techniques, post-masturbation stretching, hydration, and prostate-supportive nutrients can make a remarkable difference. But it all begins with awareness, with knowing that certain habits, while perhaps once harmless, can now be silent culprits in a range of frustrating, embarrassing, and even painful symptoms that no man should have to endure alone or in silence. And what makes these habits even more harmful is that they often go unnoticed for years, accumulating their effects slowly and subtly until the man begins to wonder why his body doesn't feel quite right anymore, why his recovery times are slower, why intimacy with a partner feels less satisfying, or why there's a nagging sense of tension or discomfort in the pelvic region that never quite goes away. And in most cases, it's not the aging process itself that causes these issues, but the unexamined repetition of techniques that were never designed for a body in its 60s or 70s, which now needs more gentleness, more circulation, and more intentional care. And this brings us to another mistake that's surprisingly common but rarely discussed: ignoring breathing and tension patterns during the act, because many men, even subconsciously, hold their breath or clench their abdominal and pelvic floor muscles as they approach climax, which might not seem harmful at first, but over time creates a state of chronic muscular tension that can lead to pelvic floor dysfunction, a condition that contributes to everything from erectile difficulties to urinary urgency to feelings of pressure in the rectal or perineal region. And this kind of dysfunction is often misdiagnosed or not diagnosed at all, especially in older men, even though it can have a profound impact on daily comfort and quality of life. And the worst part is that men who develop these issues may start to feel like they're broken or ashamed, when in fact the solution often lies in something as simple as learning to breathe more fully, soften the belly, and let go of muscular clenching during self-pleasure, because doing so not only reduces strain, but also improves blood flow, sensation, and overall relaxation, which is essential for healthy function in older age. And then there's the issue of visual or mental overstimulation, a mistake that many older men make without realizing how it affects them, especially in the digital age, where years of consuming highly stimulating adult content can rewire the brain's reward pathways and desensitize real-world pleasure responses, creating a cycle where more and more extreme visual input is needed to achieve the same result, while internal sensations and emotional presence are increasingly ignored or underwhelming. And for men over 60, this kind of mental overstimulation is particularly problematic because dopamine receptors become less responsive with age, meaning that the high from external arousal becomes harder to chase, while the emotional and psychological satisfaction of orgasm diminishes, leading to frustration, anxiety, or even withdrawal from sexual activity altogether. And this can affect not just solo experiences, but relationships as well, where a man might find himself disinterested or unable to connect intimately without artificial stimuli, which compounds the problem and isolates him further. And what urologists and sexual health therapists are now recommending for this is a gradual return to slower, more sensation-focused self-pleasure. Less performance, less visual stimulus, more time spent actually exploring what feels good physically without distraction, and more integration of breath, sound, movement, and touch in ways that reconnect the brain and body. And when done consistently, this shift can actually reawaken pleasure sensitivity and bring back much of what was thought to be lost, not because anything was broken, but because attention was misplaced for too long. And the key here is patience. Understanding that after decades of doing something one way, it takes a little time to explore a new, healthier path, but the rewards are deep and long-lasting. And along the same lines, another mistake that creeps in quietly is neglecting the aftercare of the experience. What happens in the minutes and hours after ejaculation? Because too many men over 60 go straight from stimulation to cleanup to moving on with their day without any regard for how their body is feeling afterward. And in younger years, this may not have mattered as much, but in later life, The body needs more time to return to baseline, more hydration to replenish lost fluids, and even some gentle movement or massage to support lymphatic drainage and ease any tension in the pelvic or hip area. And skipping this aftercare over time leads to a kind of subtle exhaustion or groin heaviness that builds and builds until it shows up as fatigue, discomfort during sitting, or even delayed pain responses in the lower back or thighs, all of which could be prevented by simply taking 5 or 10 minutes to breathe, rehydrate, gently stretch the inner thighs or glutes, or even lie down with a warm compress if needed. And though these steps may seem overly cautious or unnecessary, they are in fact the exact kind of small adjustments that extend a man's ability to enjoy healthy self-pleasure well into his 70s and 80s without setbacks, because they respect the body's need for recovery, not as a sign of weakness, but as a wise adjustment to the realities of aging physiology. And yet perhaps one of the most damaging yet unspoken mistakes of all is internalized shame. The kind that isn't based on technique or position, but on years of cultural programming, religious guilt, or societal silence that taught men to see masturbation as something dirty, secret, or childish. And even though many have logically unlearned these messages, the emotional residue still lingers and can show up as a background sense of guilt, anxiety, or fear of being discovered, which doesn't just affect mental health, but actually influences physical function as well, tightening muscles, spiking stress hormones, and interfering with the nervous system's ability to fully relax and enjoy the experience. And over time, this internalized stress wears down the joy and healing potential of the act, making it feel more like a compulsion or a secret chore than a celebration of bodily awareness. And the antidote to this is not overnight affirmation or self-help slogans, but the consistent and conscious practice of treating one's body with compassion and neutrality, removing the moral weight from the act and approaching it with the same care and attention one might give to any other health habit, like stretching, breathing, or meditating, because when the act is freed from shame, the body naturally softens, responds better, and the pleasure that returns is not just physical, but deeply emotional and spiritual as well. And in this way, older men can reclaim not only their sexual autonomy, but their full presence in their aging bodies, not as lesser versions of who they once were, but as fully capable, evolving beings who still deserve joy, comfort, and intimate connection on their own terms. Another critical mistake that older men often make during masturbation, which can silently harm them over time, is neglecting pelvic floor muscle health, a group of muscles that play an essential role not only in urinary and bowel control, but also in sexual function and orgasmic quality. And as men age, these muscles naturally weaken if they're not actively maintained, just like any other muscle in the body. But the connection between masturbation and pelvic floor strength is rarely discussed openly, leading many men to unknowingly contribute to their own pelvic dysfunction by either overusing these muscles through constant clenching during orgasm or underusing them by not engaging them at all, which results in a kind of muscular imbalance that can cause everything from premature ejaculation and erectile difficulties to feelings of heaviness, incontinence, and pelvic pain. And despite the sensitivity of this topic, urologists stress the importance of learning to identify, strengthen, and relax these muscles as part of a holistic approach to healthy self-pleasure in later life, with exercises like Kegels being a cornerstone, but only if done correctly and without adding excess tension, because incorrect pelvic floor exercise can worsen symptoms rather than improve them, and many men do these exercises with the wrong technique, holding their breath or tightening other muscle groups like the glutes or abdomen, which negates the benefits and can cause additional strain. So, seeking guidance from a pelvic floor physiotherapist or using detailed instructional resources can make all the difference. And combining these exercises with mindful masturbation practices can dramatically improve blood flow, nerve sensitivity, and muscle control in the pelvic area, resulting in stronger, more satisfying orgasms and better urinary function, which are often concerns for men over 60. Yet many remain unaware of this link, missing out on a simple yet powerful way to enhance their intimate health and overall well-being. And speaking of overall well-being, hydration is another silent factor that impacts masturbation health after 60, because as men age, their body's ability to retain and utilize water efficiently diminishes, and dehydration can quickly lead to thicker mucous membranes, reduced elasticity of the skin, and impaired blood flow, all of which are critical components for comfortable and pleasurable masturbation. And yet many men don't consciously increase their water intake or adjust it based on activity level or health conditions like kidney function or heart health, which can compound issues like dryness, irritation, or prolonged recovery time. And staying well hydrated throughout the day, and especially before and after masturbation, can help maintain optimal tissue health, reduce inflammation, and support the entire urinary and reproductive system's function. So this simple habit, often overlooked, is a vital piece of the puzzle for sustaining healthy sexual habits into advanced age. And while on the topic of hydration and health, it's impossible to ignore the impact of medication. Many men over 60 are on prescriptions for blood pressure, cholesterol, diabetes, or other chronic conditions, and these medications can have side effects that affect libido, erectile function, sensation, and recovery, which in turn influence masturbation habits and outcomes. But the mistake here is twofold. First, men often don't discuss their masturbation routines with their healthcare providers, missing an opportunity to adjust medication or manage side effects that may be sabotaging their sexual health. Second, they may inadvertently worsen side effects by using stimulants like excessive caffeine, alcohol, or unregulated supplements in an attempt to counteract decreased sensation or energy, creating a cycle of imbalance that can cause long-term harm. So an honest, open conversation with a doctor who understands geriatric sexual health can lead to safer, more tailored approaches that honor both medical needs and sexual wellness. And that's especially important because ignoring these interactions can lead to frustration, withdrawal from intimacy, or even depression, all of which are preventable with proactive care. And beyond medication, diet plays a surprisingly significant role in how the body responds to masturbation and sexual activity after 60. Yet it's one of the most neglected areas, with many men unaware that foods rich in antioxidants, omega-3 fatty acids, and vitamins like D and B complex support nerve health, blood circulation, and hormonal balance, which are foundational for good sexual health and recovery. And conversely, diets high in processed sugars, saturated fats, and excessive salt can promote inflammation, vascular stiffness, and hormonal disruption, all of which quietly sabotage intimate function and overall vitality. And when combined with common lifestyle factors like smoking, lack of exercise, or poor sleep, the damage compounds, making masturbation less satisfying and more fatiguing. And the good news is that small, consistent changes in diet, like adding leafy greens, nuts, fatty fish, and hydration-supporting fruits, can improve these systems and rejuvenate energy levels over time, enhancing not only masturbation experiences, but overall health and longevity. And since psychological health is inseparable from physical health, it's crucial to also address mental and emotional well-being as part of a healthy masturbation routine, because many older men live with stress, anxiety, grief, or loneliness that cloud their ability to relax into pleasure, and masturbation performed under such emotional burdens can become rushed, distracted, or unsatisfying, reinforcing negative cycles. So integrating mindfulness, meditation, or even gentle breathing exercises before and during self-pleasure can recenter focus, increase body awareness, and transform the experience into one of true restoration and connection with the self. And this holistic approach is the future of sexual health care for older adults, moving beyond just the physical mechanics to embrace the full spectrum of human experience. And finally, it's important to recognize that while masturbation mistakes can silently harm older men, they also present a profound opportunity, an invitation to learn, to adapt, and to reclaim a source of joy, comfort, and health that many assume is lost with age, but in truth is simply waiting to be rediscovered with compassion, knowledge, and care. Understanding and addressing these masturbation mistakes is not just about correcting isolated behaviors. It's about embracing a new mindset towards sexual health and aging that honors the unique needs and potentials of the older body and mind. Because when men move beyond shame, misinformation, and neglect to adopt practices that are intentional, informed, and compassionate, they unlock a deeper connection to their own bodies and to their partners, which can enrich emotional intimacy and overall quality of life in profound ways. And this process begins with education. Seeking reliable information from trusted health professionals and resources, asking questions without embarrassment, and recognizing that masturbation is a natural, healthy, and beneficial part of life at every age. And as the cultural narrative shifts to support aging men's sexual well-being openly and without judgment, more tools and therapies become available, including pelvic floor physical therapy, sex, coaching tailored to seniors, mindfulness training, and even medical options that support erectile function without harmful side effects, all of which contribute to restoring confidence and pleasure. And it's equally important to cultivate patience and self-kindness along this journey, because changing lifelong habits takes time and setbacks are normal. But each small adjustment accumulates to create significant improvements in physical comfort, sexual satisfaction, and mental wellness, which then ripple out to improve relationships, social engagement, and personal happiness. And as men learn to listen to their bodies more closely, they become more attuned to signals that indicate when to slow down, when to seek medical advice, and when to explore new forms of intimacy or self-expression. expanding their sexual repertoire in ways that feel authentic and joyful rather than forced or perfunctory. And in this light, masturbation after 60 is not merely a private act, but a vital form of self-care and connection that deserves respect and attention equal to other health habits like diet, exercise, and sleep. And it can even serve as a gateway to deeper self-awareness and emotional resilience in the face of aging's challenges, transforming what might once have been seen as a secret or shameful activity into a celebrated practice of body literacy and pleasure. And while this message may feel revolutionary to some, it is supported by a growing body of research and clinical experience that confirms the positive impacts of mindful, informed masturbation on hormone regulation, stress reduction, immune function, and cardiovascular health, which are critical for longevity and vitality. And sharing this knowledge openly helps dismantle stigma, encourages dialogue, and empowers men to take ownership of their sexual health on their own terms, fostering a sense of community and belonging rather than isolation, which is especially important as many seniors face loneliness and social disconnection. And finally, embracing these 7 key insights and avoiding the common masturbation mistakes after 60 can transform a routine act into a source of healing, joy, and empowerment, reinforcing that sexual health is lifelong and adaptable, not fixed or fading with age. And so for every man watching this, the invitation is clear. Start where you are with kindness. Learn what your body needs now. Adjust your habits thoughtfully, and never underestimate the power of self. Pleasure to nurture not just the body, but the mind and spirit as well. Because a vibrant, healthful life after 60 includes honoring your sexuality as a vital part of who you are, a wellspring of pleasure and wellness that you deserve to experience fully every day. And as you take these steps forward, remember that this journey is yours alone, but you're never truly alone in it. And by embracing these practices, you join countless men who have reclaimed their sexual health and happiness, proving that age is not a barrier to pleasure, but a gateway to a richer, more meaningful relationship with yourself. And with that, thank you for joining this conversation on such an important topic, and may your path to healthful living continue to be filled with vitality, confidence, and joy.